Welcome everybody to another video by Minko's bedroom, as they say. This is another video in our history model. Now today, what we're gonna react to is the history of NATO, NATO explained, or OTAN, as they say in French. Now NATO, I know a little bit about it. I know a good amount of. I just want to refresh and just basically uh, sort of get the foundations of what NATO is. I know that it was an organization created to counter the Warsaw Pact. That was a coalition or a NATO-esque type of situation that was happening in the east between the Soviet Union and the countries, the Eastern Bloc, as they say. And it was an organization created, I think, 1949 to counter uh, the Soviet Union and the spread of communism. And then after, in 1985, 1986, there was an agreement in 1990s, I should say. There was an agreement that if the Soviet Union were to, you know, withdraw from all those countries, and it eventually did with its own collapse, that NATO would not go further than where it was. So the borders of NATO were in Germany in the 1990s. But then there was a promise by the president. It was a verbal promise, wasn't a written promise, that NATO would not expand. NATO was an organization that was made to counter the Warsaw Pact. If there is no more pact, why should it exist? But Bill Clinton, I think in 1998, 99, towards the end, or I may be speaking on my ass here, but he uh, he expanded NATO, and it's been expanding ever since. And that's one of the biggest criticisms that Russia has with the West is that why you're still expanding the pact, getting closer and closer to the Russian border. That's actually on the Russian border now that the Warsaw Pact isn't existing. Why is the organization even you know why is it even alive if its only purpose was to destroy or to counter the Soviet influence? If there's no more Soviet influence, why does it exist? Anywho, this was basically my overall knowledge of NATO, and now we're gonna get our foundations right.
This year, 2019, marks the 70th anniversary of the formation of NATO.
That was right.
But what exactly is NATO? What has it done for the world in its 70 years of existence? And is it still relevant today? Well, NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a military alliance that unites democracies from both sides of the Atlantic. Its goal is to ensure stability and freedom in Europe. The organization's history begins just a few years after World War II, during a time when large portions of Europe lay in ruins. During the war, both the Western Allies, led by the United States, and the Soviet Union liberated large amounts of territory from Germany. In the territories they occupied, the Allies set up or re-established free and independent states, but in the Soviet occupation areas, puppet communist governments were installed with leaders that answered only to.
I was gonna say something here. This is just my little caveat. I love how he says that the West set up free democracies in the East. Puppet government, ooh, evil. And not that those regimes were not repressive, but just for the sake of things, West Germany, a free country? Are you kidding me? The amount of American troops that are on German soil right now is insane. How can you say that Germany is a sovereign country when to this day there's thousands of American troops and dozens of American bases on German soil? How can you ever say that Germany is a sovereign country? Some might say it's a puppet of the United States to this day. And not only German and American, or I should say American military bases, but there are English ones as well on soil in Germany. Now, granted, after the war, they wanted to destroy anything about Germany, and they succeeded. Because I mean, Germany. Anyways, I won't go too much into this, but Germany nowadays, is it a powerful country? Yes. Is it rich? Yes. Is it the leader of the European Union in many ways? Yes. But is it also, I'm going to quote Putin here, a vassal state of the United States of America? Yeah, it's debatable, that's for sure.
Moscow. All this, quite understandably, concerned Western European countries, who had only just finished a war with the express goal of preventing empire building in Eastern Europe. They feared that without a strong, democratic military presence to deter them, the Soviet Union would use its vast reserves of manpower and enormous military might to forcibly take the rest of the continent and turn all of Europe red. So, in 1949,
I was right.
representatives of 10 Western European countries, as well as Canada and the United States, met in Washington, D.C. and signed the North Atlantic Treaty, formally creating NATO. The most important agreement made by the countries is outlined in the treaty's Article 5. It states that any nation that joins NATO is committed to the tenet of collective defense, meaning that every member of NATO pledges to treat an attack against a single member as an attack against the alliance.
That's why I have a little, thing I want to say here is, if Ukraine is able to join not only the European Union but NATO, then things can get really tricky. Because nowadays, Ukraine is always in a limbo. They're uh, Ukraine is sort of leaning over the past few years, especially with them losing Crimea, leaning towards the West, towards the Western democracies. But if they end up joining NATO, two things have to happen. Not only have to happen, but will be interesting, is that what will happen is Russian aggression is going to persist, and if it does, will it lead to a World War III, or uh, will the Ukraine not be able to join NATO because of all the things that they have going on with Russia and other NATO countries? They don't want to go to war with Russia because they have a lot of economic ties, and it's war. Who wants to fight a power that has 5,000 nukes? So we'll see what happens.
As a whole. Article 5 has only been invoked once in NATO's 70-year history by the United States after the September 11th attacks in New York and Washington, D.C. During the Cold War, though, collective defense served as a powerful deterrent to the Soviet Union, and the security it gave to member states was attractive to other Europeans not yet in the alliance. In 1952, both Greece and Turkey joined NATO. Turkey's entrance into the alliance alarmed the Soviets greatly. For the first time, NATO.
That's around the years when that's why they put missiles in Cuba, because now America could put their own nukes on the border with Russia by proxy of Turkey. And Russia was, they needed their own threat, and they went to Cuba.
NATO had a member that bordered the Soviet Union directly, which allowed NATO to position troops close to the Soviet heartland without having to go through any puppet states. In an attempt to decrease the threat posed by NATO, the Soviet leadership asked to join the alliance in 1954, claiming that their participation would further strengthen the alliance. Shockingly, NATO members who had set up the alliance with the explicit goal of halting the spread of communism rejected this proposal. NATO's rejection of the Soviet offer, combined with West Germany joining the alliance in 1955, prompted the Soviet Union to form its own organization just 9 days later.
Союз мира и социализма. Alright, so basically union, peace, and socialism. Warszawski договор.
It was comprised
So let's see if I can name other countries: Bulgaria, Hungary, East Germany, Poland, Moldova. That's Romania. Romania, USSR,
of
Czechoslovakia.
the Soviet Union itself, as well as its communist puppets across Europe. Officially, it was called the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance, but it has become known to history as the Warsaw Pact.
Yeah.
If you're interested in learning all about the Warsaw Pact, all you need to do is leave a like down below and tell me in the comments. Also, while you're down there, if you're new here on Super Easy History and like what you see, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification
Alright,
bell.
guys, this is Super Look Back History. It's not Super Easy History. This maybe he changed the name. Look Back History. It's a great channel. It's a pretty good informative video. So you know,
To make sure you catch our next episode. You can also follow us on Twitter at Super Easy History. Right, so back to NATO. In 1966, one of the alliance's largest members, France, left the military command structure of NATO.
yeah,
They did not
France all the way. I like France because of their they're not letting they're very protective of their sovereignty in the sense that what in today's day and age to be a sovereign country you have to have nuclear power. You have to have nukes to be taken seriously on a geopolitical global stage. Because, a country as powerful as, give me a powerful country that doesn't have nukes. I mean, Brazil. Brazil is a huge economy, 200 million people. And it's a very powerful country economically, but no nukes. A lot of corruption going on, a lot of poverty. So the country isn't taken as seriously in geopolitical affairs than a country that's infinitely smaller, like France, because France uh, has nuclear power and having nukes. Not that you're gonna use them, but either for prestige or even as a deterrent is a huge deal. And France never wanted American bases to be set up on their soil. They don't have any actually. Uh, that's one of the reasons why they developed nukes because they wanted to be independent from America in a sense that while they're with Americans, they're allies. They're not subjects of America. That anything America says they have to do because they have nukes. America can't just go to France and slap them around and say you're good. You can go do what I'm telling you to do because they have nukes. Again, not that they're gonna use them, but it gives power and prestige to the country. Anyways, I was going completely off track.
not
Let's
leave
hear.
the alliance itself and remain committed to maintaining collective defense. In 1982, Greece, Turkey, and West Germany were followed in entering the alliance by Spain.
Mm.
Perhaps the most important date in NATO history, at least in terms of gaining new members, is December 26, 1991. On that day, NATO's chief opponent, the Soviet Union,
Collapse.
collapsed and
Yep.
was replaced by 15 newly independent states.
Mm-hmm.
The Warsaw Pact had also been dissolved earlier that year, resulting in the independence of all of the Soviet Union's Eastern European client states. Many of these states went on to join NATO.
Yeah.
East Germany had already become a part of it in 1990, before the Soviet Union's collapse, when it reunited with the West.
Okay.
The Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland all joined in 1999. Bulgaria, Romania,
Close. I
Slovakia,
said 1998, I think. I said 1999, 1998, 1999. Was close. I knew it was towards the end of his presidency.
and Slovenia joined in 2004.
I
Also in
remember that.
2004, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, three countries that have been
And that's the major, how should I put this? Argument from the Russian government into why uh, they're not so much an argument, but their major point in saying that look, we don't have an alliance like this anymore. The Warsaw Pact is over; it was dissolved. Why? And the only opponent of the Warsaw Pact was NATO. or at least the major opponent of NATO was the Warsaw Pact. Why is NATO expanding if their main opponent doesn't exist anymore? Is it now to contain Russia? There's all this narrative, and when you look at a map like this, it's very difficult to say no. It's not about containing Russia. It's about protection. Yeah, okay, whatever. And so there's a lot of support in Russia of because Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union was horrible. Like the 90s for Russia was a terrible time. I mean, yes, they democratized very quickly, uh, but all the it was like the army was done. They didn't have an army anymore. They lost a bunch of territory with the collapse of the Soviet Union. A lot of prestige internationally. I mean, they were not taken as a threat anymore. And not only that, but the Russian economy to this day is in a horrible shape. They have 1.2 give or take $1 trillion in GDP every year, which it might seem a lot of money, 1.2 trillion. Come on, man. But there are countries, like Germany, Japan, the Soviet, the Chinese, 14.4 trillion, 14.34 trillion dollars in GDP. America, 24 trillion. I mean, comparing it to Russia with 1.2, Russia, I don't see Russia ever. It will be very difficult for Russia to ever come back and to be as prestigious or as strong as it was, either militarily or economically. It will always have its nuclear power in terms of as a deterrence. It will never like completely collapse, from an external threat because they have nukes. They have 5,000 nukes. Who's gonna be like, you know what? We're gonna go to war with Russia. But they don't have as much power as they did, as much influence, as much prestige. So we'll see what happens. But I don't know what will happen with the Ukraine. Will they get annexed? Will that happen? Will they annex, or is the future going to be that Russia annexes Belarus and Ukraine, or parts of the Ukraine? They've already annexed Crimea. Will they annex like half of the Ukraine? Who knows?
Been an integral part of the Soviet Union itself, joined NATO. They were followed by Albania and Croatia in 2009, and upon Albania's acceptance into the alliance, all former Warsaw Pact members, except for the Soviet Union's successor state,
What's funny? This is just my thing, but he doesn't he doesn't recognize Kosovo as a country. Just like,
Russia, had become members of NATO. The last country to join NATO was Montenegro in 2017, though
okay,
four countries, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia, Ukraine, and North Macedonia, are
yeah.
all currently in the process of joining the alliance.
Which Serbia will never join. Serbia and Russia are culturally very tied together. Uh, you know, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Macedonia, if they join, it's whatever. But if Ukraine joins, because where does it go from here? Switzerland will never join. Austria, same. Um, so where does it go from here? Are they just gonna go east and east as much as they can? Where they go to Iran? I know it sounds ridiculous, but where do they go from here? Is the final addition Ukraine and all those blue highlighted countries, or are they gonna go further east?
So that's NATO, the military alliance that has ensured relative peace and stability in Europe for 70 years. But will NATO continue to expand and remain relevant as we continue into the 21st century? Share what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoy
Now, as I said, thank you so much for listening to me on this video. I hope you learned as much as I did. I knew a lot of the things that were discussed, obviously, but it was a very interesting video to sort of uh, build my foundation, quote unquote, when it comes to understanding NATO. Anywho, I hope you not only like the video, you'll learn a lot, but you like my commentary. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video.